We're on the record.
That should be all mine.
Council agenda, Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Township Council agenda meeting of November 12th, 2019.
Posting of notice. An adequate notice of this meeting has been provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Law by filing the notice in the office of the Township Clerk and by posting the meeting notice on the bulletin board at the Municipal Building on December 19th, 2018, where it has remained posted since that date. A legal notice appeared in the Daily Record and the Newark Star Ledger on December 27, 2018, and was forwarded by fax to other local newspapers and local radio stations on December 19, 2018. Council meetings are videotaped and aired on Cablevision, Public Access Channel 21 at 11 a.m. on Sundays, and are also available for viewing at www.parsippany.net.
Please rise for flag salute.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call.
Mr. DePiero,
Here.
Ms. Grignani,
Present.
Ms. McCarthy,
Here.
Ms. Peterson,
here.
Mr. Carriffy.
Here.
Also in attendance are Mayor Michael Soriano, Business Administrator Keith Kazmark, CFO Ann Cucci, Township Attorney Jim Lott, and Township Clerk Colette Madden. Council President, we have a quorum. You may begin.
Thank you. Upcoming meetings, November 26th, 7 p.m. regular meeting, December 3rd, 7 p.m. agenda meeting. Approval of minutes, regular meeting, October 15th. Presentations, reports. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Council President. First, I wish to congratulate Council members Carriffy, Grignani, and DiPiero on their re-election. I hope that we can work together for the benefit of all the Parsippany residents moving forward. Now, as we move past Election Day and prepare for 2020, I want to invite all Parsippany residents who are interested in getting involved in our community to feel free to contact the Mayor's Action Center and any member who's interested in serving on a town board or committee. I would also like to encourage all of the council members that should they wish to submit names for appointments, I welcome that and will certainly consider all names submitted. I am also asking Mr. Maiden, the clerk, say hello, clerk. Hello. All right. To circulate the list of all vacancies to be appointed at the reorganization meeting in January to the council. For those interested, it would be helpful to have all submissions by December 1st. Also, I want to announce a change to the upcoming 2020 holiday calendar for the township. Due to concerns about making tax payments the first week of November, we will go back to the previous holiday schedule where we will be closed on Columbus Day and open on Election Day. We were trying to be creative, innovative, and, there's nothing wrong with trying something new. But while we thought it was best this year for the convenience of our residents with school-aged children to follow the school calendar, getting taxes paid on time is critical, and that is why we are making this change. I have one other presentation, and for that, I would like to call up 3 members that are here with me today from the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. Okay, I had the pleasure of taking part of their Purple Stride fundraiser this weekend. I'd like to call up Alex Rappaport, Sandy Field, and Carol Beck.
Thank you.
Yes, please hand those to the council members.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Proclamation into the record. Whereas in 2019, an estimated 55,400 people have been diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in the United States, and only 44,330 will die from the disease. Whereas pancreatic cancer is one of the deadliest cancers, it is currently the 3rd leading cause of cancer death in the United States, and is projected to become the 2nd leading cause around 2020. And whereas pancreatic cancer is the only major cancer with a 5-year relative survival rate in single digits at just 9%. And whereas when symptoms of pancreatic cancer present themselves, it is generally in later stages and only 10% of pancreatic cancer patients are diagnosed when the disease is confined to their pancreas. 91% of pancreatic cancer patients die within the first 5 years. And whereas approximately 1,290 deaths will occur in New Jersey in 2019. And whereas pancreatic cancer is the 7th most common cause of cancer-related death across the world. And whereas there will be an estimated 480,000 new pancreatic cancer cases diagnosed worldwide in 2020. And whereas the good health and well-being of the residents of Parsippany are enhanced as a direct result of increased awareness about the symptoms and risks of pancreatic cancer and research into early detection, causes, and effective treatment. Now, therefore, I, Michael Soriano, by virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, do hereby proclaim the 21st day of November as World Pancreatic Cancer Day, dated this 12th day of November, 2019. And next year, I'm going to see how many council members I can get to do the 5K with. That means you too, Jim Lott.
I'm ready, Mayor.
All right.
Give me a golf cart, I'll do it.
I'll ride shotgun.
I thought I said that quietly.
You can take the car.
Golf cart.
Golf cart. Okay. we'll do
Even
it.
better. Make it purple.
Oh, you get to you can do that.
Really?
Thank you very much, Mayor, Council, members of the public. It is our privilege to be here tonight. We're very excited to have Parsippany declare November 21st World Pancreatic Cancer Day here in Parsippany because it's a worldwide event. We're trying to do, the Pancreatic Cancer Coalition is trying to get everyone in the world to just come together on this one day to try and create a lot of awareness because this is one cancer that is on the rise. Most cancers are becoming less prevalent. There's less and less per year. This one, there's more and more cases per year. And most people are diagnosed when it's too late. They're given, you know, they're told to get their affairs in order. So we just had our Purple Stride on Sunday. It's our one fundraising event of the year. We do it for the entire state. Here in Parsippany, we're very happy to have this home. We've been doing it. It was our 10th year. And right now we have $500 and almost $40,000 raised. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Council President, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Township Council.
I have a few things. First of all, we do have an opening on our Board of Adjustment. I would like to nominate Casey Parikh to fill that vacancy. His resume has been sent in.
We do have the resume on file, and we have as well the cover letter. So with that nomination, we need a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a nomination made by Mr. DePiero and a second by Mr. Carriffy. I'm going to go ahead and do a roll call. And this is for the alternate position. So
Oh, no, wait a minute. Hold up. Let me back up.
sure,
Davy Willens is the alternate now.
he moves up.
We should move him up
Correct.
to full-time, and Casey becomes the alternate.
Well, here's the other issue, and we can just, we have also, we have Davy Willens who's alternate 1, and Scott Joskowitz who's alternate 2. So what happens in that situation is Davy Willens moves up, and then Joskowitz moves up to alternate 1, and then Mr. Parikh goes to alternate 2.
Fine.
Okay, just want to make,
I modified my motion.
not a problem, you got it, Mr. DePiero. So we have a motion to nominate Mr. Casey Parikh for the Zoning Board of Adjustment. That nomination was seconded by Mr. Carriffy. We're going to go into a roll call. Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
And Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Congratulations, Mr. Parikh.
Okay, I have two other items, if I may. Hunting Ridge, that's the association where the Condit House is. The mayor has received a letter. The Hunting Ridge Association does not want the historic house. They do not want to maintain it. They would occasionally like a meeting there until they build their own clubhouse, but that's all. So they would like to set up a meeting with the township to discuss the transfer of the house and hopefully the interior road that connects Route 46 to North Beverick Road is being used as a through street by many people to bypass the light at Beverick and 46. And it's an interior street right now, so the police cannot enforce speed limits. And so they are asking the township to take over just that road, that through street, in exchange for giving us the Condit House for nothing.
So through you, Council President, through you, Mayor, we were intending on listing this as an executive session matter for the next council meeting. However, because we are heavy in executive session matters this evening, if there is a desire by the council for the administration to move forward with that meeting, absent the executive session, I'm glad to set it up.
And I would volunteer to be a part of that meeting, since I'm the one that spearheaded this.
Got it. Any objection?
No, if you
Move
can
forward.
set that up,
Okay.
thank you.
Yep, we'll set it up before the end of the month.
Thank you. One more thing. Airbnbs. There's an article in several newspapers now regarding Jersey City and their Airbnb referendum that they just passed. I would like our township to look at the issue of Airbnbs and to do something to protect the quality of life in neighborhoods. Because what has been happening is people have been buying homes and then renting out the entire homes to Airbnb. Nobody in the home is really responsible, and that means the neighbors next door don't know who's going to be coming in there and in their neighborhood, changing all the time, and it's a quality of life issue that we should be able to deal with. So I recommend that we look into that, what Jersey City did, and emulate their good judgment.
So
Council
again-
President, I actually spoke to Councilmember Grignani about this a while ago, and I've worked with our township planner. We actually have an amendment prepared to address Airbnbs, which I think we'll be ready to introduce at the next meeting. Right?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
And Susan, if you would, when you get up to do the presentation under my report, if you could just speak to that as well.
And here I thought I was originating something.
No, we're a little bit ahead of you.
Well, that's good.
That's okay.
fine.
That's all right.
Okay, anyone else? All right, Township Attorney, Mr. Lott.
I have several items for closed session as noted on the agenda.
Business Administrator, Mr. Kazmar.
Thank you, Council President. I have two issues. One, which Ms. Cucci will address relative to the recent bond sale that the township conducted. And then following that, we'll have a brief presentation of the draft master plan summary by our municipal planner, Susan Favate. Ann?
Thank you. Yeah, we're always monitoring the finances of and the markets to be able to permanently finance our capital. Okay, when you do your ordinance, we don't finance it until it's pretty much ready or already completed. We temporarily finance it through notes. So the market has become extremely favorable. And as you know, you passed all those ordinances for us to be able to go out. Well, we did on November 7th, and we went out for $16 million in bond anticipation notes. The way we design it is to make sure that we're keep our debt structure level and reasonable with our budget. So we went out for $16 million. We were able to get 1.199, which is an amazing rate, almost 1.2, and then $42 million in bonds. And we were able to get, we had 10 bidders, by the way. Everyone was interested in the town at 2.255%. So that's awesome. We did a great job.
Any questions for Ann about the bond sale?
No, that's fantastic. Thank you.
really pretty good.
Good job.
Okay. And with that, for the presentation of the draft master plan, Susan?
And I will try to be brief. But Councilman DePiero it was like you were psychic. We have a draft master plan, and here it is, and it's on the township's website, so anybody can go look at it. And we have a public hearing scheduled for next Monday night with the planning board. So I just wanted to spend a few minutes with you as the council, because even though the planning board adopts the master plan, lots of the recommendations would fall under your purview. So I'm going to go through just a quick summary of some of them that I've kind of flagged that I think the township council would have a role, basically things that require you to spend money or change an ordinance. So there's a lot of recommendations, but I'm tried to highlight the ones that you would have a role with. So just to give you a quick recap of the process, we started in September of 2018. We spent the first few months sort of information gathering, meeting with a lot of folks, looking at existing additions, and then we developed some initial recommendations which we shared with the public in June of this past year, and we refined those over the summer. We kind of took a step back and waited for the housing plan to finish. We didn't want to be at the same time, and the housing plan had, as you all know, a firm deadline that really needed to be met, so we kind of took a back seat to the housing plan, and now we're ready at the point of adoption next week, perhaps. So just a recap of the outreach, we were at the Fall Fair last September just to kind of kick off the process with the public, make people aware of it, get some initial ideas. We had 2 public workshops, one in November of last year, and then the second one when we had more firm recommendations back in June. Both well attended, and we were really happy with the feedback that we got from the public. We also had a public survey which ran for about 6 weeks or so, got just over 1,000 responses. And this was actually really helpful when we were framing the recommendations. And so you'll see if you look at the master plan, when we get to the section on the recommendations, we start each section with a few questions of the survey. You know, what did we hear from people? And you can see how the recommendations really do directly follow from what we heard from the respondents. And as you can see, many of them are long-term residents. Nearly all of the survey takers are residents of Parsippany. We also had some focus group meetings with township committees and boards and different people in the township, the library, Craftsman Farms. We talked to some clergy. We talked to mobility providers and your transportation committee. We talked to different staff members, really trying to get a full sense of what are the current conditions here in the township and what are the issues that we need to address. So basically that comes into how we structured the plan. We took all of those inputs, the existing addition analysis, all the outreach that we got, both from the workshops and the survey, and we put them into a set of draft strategies and recommendations which are categorized according to these areas. We put transportation first because that's what we've heard consistently throughout the process is everyone's sort of top concern. And they're all very much interrelated. So you can see when you go through the plan, you might have a recommendation that has something to do with transportation, but it also has something to do with the environment if it's improving walkability and bikeability. So there's sort of twin recommendations there. You know, kind of the overriding theme, and we've talked about this a little bit in some of our outreach, we just kept hearing about connectivity, and people were concerned about it literally when you're talking about streets, and then the neighborhoods and how they're sort of segmented by the highways, but also more on a social level. People talked a lot about how they get news and how they find out about things happening in the township, and it's a little bit fragmented, I think, as we all know, and I think all towns are really experiencing nowadays. We talked about municipal services, and there's this desire for a little bit more centralized location for a lot of services and a lot of civic resources as well. So it was really kind of an overarching theme that unified a lot of what we were hearing. I'm not going to read these goals, but these are the 13 plan goals. I tried really hard not to make more goals than you currently have, but the planning board did ask that we add one goal that specifically deals with sustainability. So we did add that. And a lot of the goals are carried over from your 2014 master plan reexamination. We did some reorganization, but we added a couple goals. We really wanted to focus on strengthening retail as well as your office uses, because as you all know, retail is struggling really nationwide. And we added sustainability, and we really just kind of restructured a little bit of it. But a lot of it you'll see really does carry over with some of your previous master planning efforts. So I'm just going to quickly run through the main the main topic areas and give you a sense of some of the recommendations that you'll have a role in coming years. So you'll see that several of the recommendations deal with preparing new elements of the master plan. I never like to, finish a study by recommending more studies, but sometimes you really need to. And it's been about 14 or 15 years since your last transportation element. A lot of it has been implemented, some of it has not been, and there are new areas of focus that need to be looked at. So that was a key recommendation here: is develop a new circulation element of your master plan, adopt a complete streets policy. That would be a legislative action on your part. We talked a little bit about park and ride, how to make that more attractive to residents and perhaps not being filled up by non-residents. So a permit program is something that you might explore. Giving priority to residents could be a revenue stream as well. Looking at potential increases to capacity for your park and rides. They are very well used and is a really great resource for your residents. Looked at studying the potential for a centralized bus location. That also might have the benefit of allowing you to look at a transit village designation. That's one of the criteria that the state uses is access to a central transit resource. And then you already have a free bus that's used primarily by seniors. A lot of people don't really seem to know about it. We talked about marketing and improving that outreach. There might be some cost to that, so that's why I'm mentioning it tonight. Economic development, a lot of this is regulatory ordinance changes, and I think the planning board might take a start at studying the issue for you and coming up with some recommendations, but at the end of the day, you're the board who adopts regulation changes. So we talked about looking at uses in business zones and broadening the uses that are allowed. Fitness, yoga studios, those types of things aren't anticipated by your current code. Brew pubs is a use that's increasing in interest. Streetscape improvements, we talk a lot about Beverwick Road, but Parsippany Road also needs some help, and we've heard that throughout the process. Opportunities for branding and making people elsewhere in Morris County and the region more aware of all the resources that Parsippany has to offer, doing things like marketing your historical assets. And then we think there's a lot of room for just streamlining of zoning, which could have a business-friendly aspect for the businesses that are existing here in town and also future potential ones. Looking at open space and recreation, it's been quite a few years since you've updated your recreation element. We think the time is right to look at that again and to revisit it at least once or twice a year with your committee. There's interest in an indoor recreation facility. You have the Police Athletic League facility, but there's a desire that we heard for more of a municipally controlled facility that could be put in tandem with your potential civic complex. And then we heard a lot about people just not knowing kind of when things are happening, needing a centralized information sharing for recreation in particular. Right now, a lot of it seems to be ad hoc by volunteers, and people had a hard time knowing, when fields are available and what the calendars say. Just better overall outreach and information. You have some previously planned recreation expansions that we're encouraging you to see through, and also look at targeted acquisitions as appropriate. There are a lot of recommendations about the environment. This is something that several members of the planning board are quite interested in, and I think there's a lot of room for improvement here. First recommendation, these are in no particular order, is an environmental resources inventory. Highlands Council can provide some funding for that once you've opted in, and that's another recommendation here that is in process already, is coming into conformance with the Highlands Council standards. We looked at potential regulatory changes to better protect your environmental resources like steep slopes, wetlands, and trees. You are a tree city. That's a reputation that Parsippany has, but we think that there's always room to improve that protection. We talked a lot about drinking water as part of the master plan, and improving the capacity, but also improving the infrastructure that you have to make sure that it doesn't leak, that you're not losing drinking water with the infrastructure that's in place already. And then there is interest on the planning board in a standalone environmental sustainability element. More and more communities are doing that. And it is something that's provided for in state law. And housing in neighborhoods, a lot of this deals with preserving what you have in terms of your established residential neighborhoods. And you'll see, we talk about Airbnb here about a quality of life issue. And as the township attorney said, we do have an ordinance pretty much ready to go. We wanted to make sure it was also in the master plan as well. So we've been looking at that. Some recommendations which are not final. It's kind of a menu of recommendations that I think the planning board's going to need to study a little bit more about a scale in established neighborhoods. The board's been talking about that a lot, and there's no clear answer yet. But we know that there's concern about tear downs in some neighborhoods, and you want to balance that, right? You want to have investment in these neighborhoods. You want to be able to have a homeowner make improvements, but you also don't want to really drastically change the neighborhood. So we're looking at that, and there's kind of a menu of potential options there. And in terms of your multifamily zoning, you have a lot of garden apartments, as you all know, that are getting a little bit tired in some ways. Some of them more than others, and we're looking at, are there ways that zoning could be tweaked to incentivize some upgrades to those apartment complexes, upgrading them to more modern standards. So that's a recommendation as well. Community facilities and infrastructure. This is one that we also think that you need a standalone element, and I don't know that you've had one previously that looks just at your municipal facilities. We think that there's a need to look at what you have and the space constraints that you currently have, obviously here in Town Hall, but also at other municipal facilities elsewhere in town. We talked about water infrastructure as well as sanitary sewer infrastructure. There are needs for some upgrades there that will be capital in terms of those recommendations. So it's again your call. And then some residents that we talked to and different people that we heard from really suggested this idea of a one-stop app. And it kind of gets back into that information sharing that we keep hearing about. People just don't know where to go to find out what's going on. And they kind of were looking to the township to put that on the website and take the lead on that. Arts and culture, you do have a lot of great resources here in town, and I think really the trick is to get people to be aware of them. And so we heard a lot of interest and a lot of pride in the events that you already have, the great diversity that you have here in Parsippany in terms of people from all over the world that really contributes to your identity. And people just wanted to see that continue and even more of those types of events. The second recommendation is actually carried over. I think it's been a recommendation for a little while now, is to update your historic preservation element, continue to support, including maintenance as needed of the township-owned historic properties. You do have a few. And then we did meet with representatives of Morris County Tourism, and they're kind of ready and willing to work with you on helping brand the township and helping be a partner in terms of what Morris County is doing.
We just rejoined them. We just joined
Oh,
them. Yes.
great. So that's it. I'm just trying to keep it short. But as I said, the full plan is on the township website, and on the 18th, which is Monday night, we do have a public hearing of the planning board open to the public, so you're all welcome to come. The planning board will be hearing comments on the draft and may be in position to adopt that night. We'll just see how it goes. But we're excited to be at the end of the process. And I think the next step, once the board adopts the plan, is to kind of get a sense of priorities. There's a lot of recommendations and kind of where do we get started. So we've already started talking about that a little bit with the planning board, and probably early next year we'll start to prioritize some recommendations that they'll be giving to you. Some of them, the ordinances that Mr. Lott was just mentioning, are pretty much ready to go, but others are more long-term and may require some budget as well from you. So any questions? You're welcome to also come on Monday night if you want to go out for another meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie.
Great, thanks.
Township Clerk, Mr. Madden.
Just one item, Council President. Last week we had the election, and I just want to thank Chief Miller and Captain Tom Carney and all the officers that helped out. This year we did something different. We had to, in order to preserve the chain of custody, we delivered the election bags to the polling locations, and it was a flawless process, and I just wanted to thank all the police for their help. That's all I have.
Thank you. Township offices, committees, reports.
Not at this
No,
time.
I don't have anything.
Engineering report, Edgewood Court reconstruction project. Construction is substantially complete. The contractor is working with the sewer department on unforeseen issues with the sanitary sewer lateral repairs. Final Paving will take place once the sanitary work has been completed. No council action required. 2019 road resurfacing curb and sidewalk program. All curb and sidewalk work is complete. Road milling and paving will continue into October. No council action required. Drainage issues. Engineering and Public Works Department are actively investigating numerous drainage issues. Groundwater is still high and seeping through the asphalt roadway on Haddonfield Drive and Fernwood Place. We are installing under-drain systems on these roads to collect the water and reduce icing problems in the winter. Other drainage issues are being investigated around Ashwood Place, Fox Hill Road, and in the Lake Intervale area. No action required. Community Rating System CRS program. We are currently working with consultant and the NJDEP on getting back into the CRS program. This will provide discounts of flood insurance policies based on the level of activities in which the township participates. No council action is required. Endorsement of the NJDOT Local Freight Impact Fund Grant application. We are in the process of preparing and submitting a grant application through the NJDOT Local Freight Impact Fund. The fund is a competitive grant for transportation projects that address impacts of freight travel in local communities. Eligible applications must have a minimum of 10% large truck volume and access a warehouse/distribution center. Our application is for the improvements to Jefferson Road from Parsippany Road to Smith Road and includes drainage enhancements, roadway base course strengthening, minor widening at Parsippany Road, and surface course paving. A resolution endorsing the applications will need to be adopted by the Township Council. Bids taken. October 17th, one new 2020 4x2 Class 8 chassis and rear loader for the Sanitation Department. October 31st, well 4 and 4A air stripping facility, repacking and rehabilitation. November 7th, Knoll West Country Club system irrigation replacement, to be taken, none. Public hearing. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to open up the public hearing.
Motion.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Floor is open to the public on any matter.
Okay, if you do come up, please state your name and address. You'll be given 5 minutes.
Nicholas Homiak, Lake Hiawatha. Will there be a public comment session for the master plan on the 18th? Or will it just be
At the planning board, yes.
Yes.
All right, then I'll save my...
But that will be at the planning board, Nick, not here.
On the 18th?
Yes.
In this
Correct.
room?
Monday.
Right.
Right.
Kevin Brancato, Celtic Way. The last meeting, and it's appropriate, Nick Homiak just got up. He stood here and gave credit to Kemper Sports for the condition of the Knoll facilities. I want to make it clear that in no way Kemper has any responsibility for the golf course, the maintenance on the golf course. They strictly run the golf operation. We have a young man up there by the name of Matt Seacrest, who we paid to go to Rutgers to their agronomy school, which is the top school in the country. And he has done a phenomenal job of keeping that facility and improving that facility for the golfers. So I just want to make it clear that Kemper had no responsibility for that whatsoever. And I want to make sure you understand the seriousness of getting this thing moving quickly. We're going to lose at least 50, maybe more golfers. You know, we talk about the membership fees. Roughly 30% of the revenue for the Knoll comes from membership fees. Not to mention what they pay in green fees for the amount of rounds that they pay. So out of roughly $2.4 million worth of what the budget is up there, you're talking about $750,000 roughly in membership, and then what these guys are paying in green fees. You will lose a substantial portion of your revenue if we don't get this thing moving and moving quickly. We cannot afford to wait until June to start a new season up there. We have to get rid of Kemper now, and we have to take control of it again and get this thing moving. I can't emphasize it enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Casey Parikh, 45 DeCross Court, Parsippany. Is that okay? Yeah. So I'd like to thank you, Council, for appointing me to the Board of Adjustment. I'm looking forward to serving on the board and, putting whatever experience I had from the planning board to work, and hopefully I'll be, very productive member of the board. But thank you again. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good evening, council members. This past summer, the council unanimously passed an
Sir,
ordinance.
just state your name.
Oh, I'm sorry, Robert Quinn, 20 Mohawk. This council unanimously passed an ordinance banning the distribution of single-use plastic bags at the point of sale. I am very proud to be employed by a family-owned small business in Parsippany, a business that will be impacted by this ordinance. But the time to argue for or against this ordinance has long passed, and I am not against efforts to protect our environment. We're just a few short months away from this ban going into effect, and the businesses and residents have still not been properly notified about the ordinance. I've been making it a point to educate residents throughout my workday, and very few, if any, know anything about this. I've had business owners in town asking me when it goes into effect, and what the ordinance defines as single use and what will and will not be exempt, because they have heard crickets from the township and this administration. Throughout the process in passing Ordinance 2019:33, many in the administration, as well as Councilwoman McCarthy and Peterson, spoke before the residents of this town, proclaiming that they would work to inform the community at large, educate the businesses, and give both of those groups a seat at the table when a committee is formed. But to my knowledge, that committee has yet to be formed. I urge the mayor and his administration to act now. I also want to quickly address something that I came across while preparing for this. At the July 2nd agenda meeting, a concern was raised regarding the implementation of 5G across the nation and its potential health hazards. And a request was made to the council to prevent this new technology from being installed within the township. I'm a technology guy. I worked for Cincinnati Bell, which is a telecom company, and I'm extremely disappointed to hear that there's an ordinance in place that prevents 5G technology from being installed in neighborhoods. The New York Times recently put out a fantastic article likening this to the concerns that were raised when Wi-Fi first came about in the early 2000s. Studies are showing that the high-frequency waves that it emits are safer than your shorter frequencies. So I just would like you guys to reconsider your stance on 5G, and I really don't want to see Parsippany be stuck in the Stone Age when this becomes the standard. Thank you.
So, Mr. President, I just follow up on a comment. There is no ordinance that bans 5G. In fact, we're preempted by FCC regulation from doing so. There is regulation of the municipal right-of-way for people who want to install 5G antennas, and the comment was directed at the fact that we were going to look at our standards by which we grant approval for the use of our right-of-way. But there's no prohibition on the rollout of 5G.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Through you, Council President. Mr. Quinn, with regard to the education program relative to the plastic bag ordinance, we have a working group here in Town Hall. It consists of our Senior Services and Social Services Director, Michelle Pacone, myself, Mr. Schneider from Public Works, and Chad, our Recycling Coordinator. We have worked considerably on the education program, which is about to be released within the next 2 weeks. We have visited and had multiple conference calls with Jersey City and the folks who implemented the education program there. We've personally actually spoken to Mayor Fulop about his vision and what worked and what didn't in educating a city as vast as Jersey City as to the plastic bag ban ordinance. So we have a letter that will be going out within the next 2 weeks to all of the businesses that will be affected. Our Fire Prevention Bureau are actually the ones that furnished us with the list of all the businesses in town, so that we can send out not only the letter advising them of the effective date of the ordinance, which is February the 6th, 2020, but also provide literature to the business owners as to what is and is not acceptable. For example, a dry cleaner is still able to put the plastic wrap around the clothes when you go to pick up your dry cleaning, but a plastic bag at a grocery store would not be permissible. So all of that material is formulated, it's ready to be launched. In addition to that, the community calendar that goes out each year from the mayor's office will include an entire write-up for the public at large to become educated as to how the ban will affect them as well. So all of it is forthcoming, but just so you're aware, since the ordinance was adopted by this governing body, we have been working diligently to put together as simple and concise an information packet for both the businesses and the public to absorb on this matter.
Thank you.
Bill Marshall, 30 Rockaway Place, Parsippany. I just want to reiterate some of the points that Kevin just made, Kevin Brancato. I polled about 45 members of the Knoll over the last several days about their feelings about Kemper and Kemper going forward and starting next season. Not one single member that I polled is in favor of that. And quite a few people are literally on the edge of whether or not they want to join or not. It's really been, for as good a weather we had, this has really been a bad golf season up there. We lost our locker room, and that wasn't Kipper's fault, but we show up, we weren't notified. Their part of their job is to communicate with the members. They let us know that there was a member guest one time, the day before the member guest. How are you supposed to sign up for a member guest, arrange for a guest to come when you don't even know what's happening? These guys are a disaster, and you got to get rid of them. I can't implore you enough. Thank you.
Through your council president, just to bring the council up to speed, the committee in which will review the Knoll contracts, both on the catering side and on the sports management side, will be meeting for the first time this Thursday night at 7:30. Council members DiPiero and Peterson will both be involved with that meeting, as will the mayor, Ann Cucci, Colette, and myself. So we will have something to report back as to our findings at that initial meeting at our next council meeting.
Thank you.
Council President. Mr. Kazmark,
Yes.
the catering contract, that's not up at the same time. Isn't that 2021, I believe?
Yes, there's a difference. They don't expire at the same time, but what I think the committee needs to do is decide what that looks like going forward, and how we, if there is a desire to merge the two in the future, which there may or may not be, I'm not here to speculate on that, how we would do that based on the timing that you just mentioned.
Okay, thank you.
Eric Densmore from 95 Mara Road, Lake Hiawatha. I have a question for the council, or if anyone knows here, and then I'll follow this up with what happened. In Lake Hiawatha, I've noticed that there are several, how should I say, special needs individuals, mentally, for lack of a better term. Is there some type of organization that is responsible for either housing these people, supervising them, or things of that nature?
Do you have any other questions, or?
Well, I'll tell you what happened to me. This past Sunday, my wife and I were coming back from shopping. It was about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I live in Knoll Gardens. We pulled into the parking lot, and I noticed there was a woman rummaging through our dumpster. She is not a resident of our complex. I immediately got out and I questioned her because I didn't know what the deal was. She became very belligerent. She had a shopping cart with her, so I do not know what else she was doing, but the shopping cart appeared to be loaded with a whole bunch of stuff. But what disturbed me a little bit was as she was going through the dumpster, she was going through papers, reading through them and things of that nature. And with identity theft and the way that it is in this day and age, you just never know. So I questioned her on this. She became very belligerent with me, started cursing at me, and then proceeded to run at me, spit in my face, and then taking a bottle of water from the shopping cart and then dumping it on me. This is not an exaggeration. I then called the Parsippany Police Department, and then at that point, she ran away. The dispatcher knew who I was talking about and dispatched an officer to the location. I was very surprised by the way the officer responded to me after I told him the story. He knew who I was talking about and proceeded to tell me her backstory. Clearly, she is special needs, and I have no desire to press charges against her or things of that nature, okay? But nevertheless, whether or not she is special needs, that is no way to act, okay? Especially if you're rummaging through something that you have no business going through. And the police officer proceeded basically to turn the whole thing on me, that it was somehow my fault, that he indicated to me that I've known this woman for many, many years, and no one has ever had a problem with her. You are the first person to ever have a problem with her. I have noticed her walk up and down Beverwick Road with the shopping cart and balloons, but I never had any interaction with her up until Sunday. So, nevertheless, the reason why I'm coming before you is there clearly she's living somewhere. Someone has to be responsible for supervising these people. That is no way to act. I've heard from other people, they've had similar types of experiences with her, and I just don't think it's excusable. I had no desire to press charges on her, but I think there should be something to kind of, how should I say, minimize that type of behavior. So that's all that I have.
Matt Lanza, Denville, New Jersey. The last time we were here, we got several members from the Knoll. I mentioned I was a 28-year member, et cetera, and Mr. Kasmark, you answered my first question, which was, has the council reached a recommendation on whether we're going to proceed with Kemper or go back to the way the Knoll was run and run successfully. The other question I have is, which was mentioned last time we were here, a superintendent of golf managing whoever running that facility. We had no one from the township holding Kemper accountable. That is a position that needs to be filled. In years past, you were all president at Glenn Fossell's dedication. We had somebody. If that person was there, I'm not certain that we would have as many issues with Kemper as we've had. What I would like to understand, though, is I'm the guy who put in an OPRA request. Ann knows about this for revenue expenses from the Knoll. I've got a notice today from your office with another delay. I realize it takes a lot of time to fulfill that request, which is fine. But that's that. I would just encourage you, have all of you had the opportunity to read Kevin's outline of the material that he handed you last time we met, showing the deficiencies in Kemper's performance on the contract. I think the decision is clear. You got to terminate him now. We can't afford, as everybody else has said, come before me, can't afford to lose another golf season. We need to get a bid package out now if we're going to attract a pro and salvage 2020's golf season. So I hope that's part of your recommendation next Thursday. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay,
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Alan J. Barrett's 840 Smith Road, since 1994, proud taxpayer and resident. When I signed my contract to buy my house, because I'd seen the Knoll one time before that, when they actually had a modular thing there after the fire, I took my deed that I hadn't yet, or contract for sale, and certain other utility things, and I joined the Knoll first. I had the pleasure of meeting Mike DePiro there, one of the first people I met and a good friend. Let me say this to you, Mayor, to try something different is not a bad idea. Our last pro, he was not what we had when I joined in 1994 with Steel King. This man alienated a lot of people, okay? Then he goes and he wins the Merchandiser of the Year, and everyone thought that, hey, you know what, there's some revenue to be had here. He's making money in the pro shop, why don't we get a piece of that? And your contract with Kemper provides, as I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you can get a piece of the revenue from the pro shop. But guess what happened? Nobody bought anything. Because people who play golf, as I did from high school and college, and it's a part of our lives, we're not going to support a company that doesn't provide us a service. We will support an individual like we did Steel King, even though he cried a lot at the end of every contract and you guys had to deal with it. And George to an extent also, even though he was George. But we're not going to support a company and we're not going to buy anything there and you're not going to get any revenue from a piece of the action. And I'm guessing that's what happened, okay? There's too much on the internet, there's too much in the golf galaxies, and that's where it's going to go. The superintendent, Matt, has done a fantastic job. The golf course is in a better shape than ever. I remember when in 1994, Mike, there were holes that there were no grass on. They said that the water table was too high, and it's beautiful. The golf course is in great shape. It's an opportunity with the right person in there who could have some ideas of marketing to get people to fill the gaps on the times when the members are not there. It can be a great resource. It should be the pride of this place. It's a great municipality. It's a great golf course. Kemper is not the way to go. It's funny because when I go down to Kemper manages a facility in Galloping Hill, so I go down there a lot because I'm passing on the Parkway from work and down my shore house, and I hit balls there maybe 3-4 times a month. There's nobody buying anything in the pro shop because it's a corporation. You need, people like my sister who are members of fine country clubs. They support their pros. We want to support a pro who has a great idea for marketing, and hopefully we can get back to what it was. It wasn't really broke. I see it. There's always an opportunity to change things, but we didn't fix it. And I thank you very much for your time.
I can just have you sign in, sir.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, see no one else come forward, entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion.
Second?
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call. Mr. DePiro?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Floor is closed.
Okay, ordinances.
Ordinance for introduction, ordinance 2019:67. An ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 4, Administration of Government, Article 4, Township Clerk of the Code of Parsippany-Troy Hills, establishing compensation for municipal clerk and deputy clerk for election-related matters when other municipal employees are off. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills held on November 12, 2019, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on November 26, 2019, at 7 p.m. prevailing time, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached, at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance with the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Grignani. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Ordinance 2019:68, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills, Morris County, New Jersey, amending and supplementing Chapter 296, peddling and soliciting of the Code of Parsippany-Troy Hills. Be it resolved that the above ordinance be introduced, read by title, and passed on the first reading at a meeting of the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills held on November 12, 2019, and that said ordinance be further considered for second reading and final passage at a meeting to be held on November 26, 2019, at 7 p.m. prevailing time, or as soon thereafter as the matter may be reached at the municipal building in said township, at which time all persons interested shall be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance. Be it further resolved that the clerk be authorized and directed to advertise said ordinance and the notice of introduction thereof being published in the official newspaper according to law. Motion to approve the above resolution.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Ms. McCarthy, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, at this time, I'll ask council members to read the rest of the ordinances, see if there's any questions or concerns. Non-consent agenda, there's none there. Consent agenda, if everyone would take a look at that, if there's any questions or concerns. Here none. Moving on to approval of payrolls and bills list. Ms. Grignani?
CFO Ann Cucci recommends authorization for payment. 1. Authorize payment of the November 8th, 2019 regular and miscellaneous payroll estimated at $1,650,000 each. 2. Payment of bills from voucher list of November 15th, 2019 through November 17th, 2019, totaling $1,757,291.73. Motion to approve the authorization for payment.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Grignani, seconded by Mr. DePiero. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Whereas the Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231, permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas the Township Council is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, and whereas the Township Council wishes to discuss attorney-client privilege, Carriffy litigation, contract negotiations, Fire District 1, litigation, Aptive Environmental LLC, contract negotiations, Stanberry 1515 redevelopment project, amended redevelopment agreement, and amended financial agreements. And whereas minutes will be kept, and once the matter involving the confidentiality of the above no longer requires confidentiality, the minutes can be made public. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Council of the Township of Parsippany-Troy Hills that the public be excluded from this meeting. Motion to adjourn into closed session.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Peterson, seconded by Ms. McCarthy. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Carriffy?
Yes.
We're adjourned in closed session. There is no action to be taken for the public, just so you know.
Motion to reconvene.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
We are into open session. Motion to adjourn,
Motion
please.
to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. DePiero, seconded by Ms. Peterson. Roll call, Mr. DePiero?
Yes.
Ms. Grignani?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Ms. Peterson?
Yes.
Have a good night, everyone.
Good night.